There's no room for punks in suits. Just real heroes who can really kick ass.
You and me, like Batman and Robin.
Okay, Robin wishes he was me.
Dave, aka Kick-Ass, has more going on in his life nowadays. The biggest of which being he joins Justice Forever, a group of heroes who were inspired by him. Meanwhile, Mindy, aka Hit Girl, is trying to lead a normal life for the sake of her guardian, who is a friend of her deceased father. And lastly, Chris D'Amico is back, forming a supervillain team to exact revenge upon Kick-Ass. The good! Though some more fun than others, Justice Forever is comprised entirely of people who are very fun characters. They also pleasantly surprised me with the casting of Donald Faison and Jim Carrey in this movie. Even if Colonel Stars and Stripes is more of a minor character in the grand scheme of things, Jim Carrey owns every second he's on screen, and it is awesome. Mindy's back in this movie too, and she brings her wonderful, snarky, swearing, badass style. I'll admit it was awesome, but in the first movie, Hit Girl kinda put me off because it was a little kid cursing and killing and doing all sorts of things not befitting to a little kid. Again, it was still awesome. For this movie, I warmed up to it very quickly, especially considering the people you see her cursing at. Christopher Mintz-Plasse is also very great. Even though I sometimes get tired of him being annoying, cocky, and not being able to put his fists where his mouth is, he's still entertaining and hilarious, especially for one joke that was a rewrite of a controversial rape scene in the comic. After the story of Kick-Ass, I think the story of Kick-Ass 2 was a logical next step to go. And seeing various themes about the morality of being a hero or vigilantism in and of itself, it's very interesting. The iffy. Somewhere down the line, Jim Carrey pulled his support for promoting Kick-Ass 2. Most people react by saying, did you read the script or did you see the first movie? And the answer to that is, yes he did. He was a big fan of the first movie, which is why he wanted to be a part of this movie. But given all the violent acts that have been committed in recent times, like the Aurora shooting or the Sandy Hook shooting, he had a change of heart and decided to pull his support. Being an actor, he should be very aware that what he's doing is make-believe, as well as wildly inappropriate for a real-life standard. But at the same time, the movie's doing okay money-wise without him, so I'm not going to make too big a deal out of it, especially since that doesn't seem to be stopping them from making Kick-Ass 3. I heard the script of this movie was adapted from 2 comic books, a spin-off movie featuring Hit Girl, which told the majority of the story of her trying to live a normal life, and the actual Kick-Ass 2 comic. On one hand, despite it being very similar to Mean Girls, I really liked Hit Girl's story arc because, let's face it, her swearing and badassness just makes those scenes bearable. On the other hand, there's not quite enough Kick-Ass in a movie with Kick-Ass's name in the title, so I think they should have stuck closer to the comic. I think her story arc about trying to fit in and leading a normal life could have fit into its own 30 or 40 minute short film that just told a story about her. Maybe they could have included it on the DVD or something. Quick disclaimer, I haven't read the comics. I just believe this for the sake of being accurate to the story. There is a post-credits scene at the end of this movie, so if you're seeing it in a theater, stick around. The bad. Expanding on the idea that it should have been more about the Kick-Ass comic than the Hit Girl comic, there is one minor character in Kick-Ass 2 who goes through a certain story arc. Not only is this character so minor you almost forget he exists until he's convenient to the plot again, it's a bad enough stretch to even include him in the plot given how little he was actually featured for most of the movie, and what he's doing is quite literally a stretch just to get the plot going. And finally, there's some things that he does that should have dire consequences, but don't. If a movie's gonna do a character arc, that character needs to be in the movie more. Remember Kick-Ass's girlfriend from the first movie? She's pretty much shoved aside in the first 10 minutes of this one. There are times where this movie starts to feel a little too cliché. There are motifs about your identity and what it means to be a hero and other stuff like that. There are times where these messages are very good. Other times, they get repeated so often, they get old. The original Kick-Ass was very bizarre, and it took me a little bit to warm up to the idea of it, but since the first movie warmed me up, I went into this movie and I liked it even better than the first one. It makes me want to read the comics, and to watch the first movie again. This is Detective Steve, and this movie delivered a blow inflicted by the foot to the proverbial posterior of awesome. In layman terms, it kicked ass.